All right. Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of HR Leadership and Coffee Talk. And today we're going to talk about Zoom rules and everybody's favorite not to talk about, politics. So again, I will introduce ourselves. I am Daya Naif. I am a professional coach, a certified mediator. I have 16 years in law practice, and I'm a contract general counsel. Edgar?
Hi again, everyone. I'm Edgar Jatu. I'm the owner of Afikim LLC. I'm a consultant, primarily in HR. I'm also a nonprofit professional, problem solver, certified mediator, and workers' rights advocate.
All right. And so today what we're covering, we're talking about employees who are using video conferencing such as Zoom and team leaders who want to set a tone for political conversations at work. So how is Zoom like a Kleenex? Okay. When you are sitting at a meeting with somebody and you ask for a Kleenex, you're not terribly offended if they hand you a box of Puffs or even a store brand. So Zoom has now become a noun, a household name. And so today, like most conversations recently, if we're talking about Zoom, we are talking about video conferencing platforms. So there's Skype, there's Google Teams, there's Hangouts, there are Blue Jeans, there was WebEx. There's probably about 100 of them, maybe even more. And so for our conversation today, when we talk about Zooming, we're not just talking about Zoom, and I think you get the picture. Edgar, why don't you lead us off with some Zoom best practices?
Yes, absolutely. So now that Zoom and web conferencing has become very much important in this day and age, it's critical that employers set guidelines for how they want employees to conduct Zoom meetings. And so common things that you're seeing now that employers are asking employees to do is to dress appropriately. So it doesn't mean that it may be suit and tie, although that might be the case depending on the situation. But rolling out of bed and not being kept is not something that you should be doing professionally just on your own. But now employers are starting to create policies around that. Other things that employers are asking of employees are or is some etiquette rules in terms of being present while you're on a Zoom call. Oftentimes people, and I think we're all guilty of it. You get on a Zoom call, but you do other things. You might be checking email or checking your phone or doing other work, and not exactly being fully present in the meeting. And the way you have to think about it is, if you're at an in-person meeting, right, you would more than likely be present and not be on your phone or be doing other things because it'll be very noticeable and distracting. It's very similar if you're in a Zoom call, so people can see if you're doing other things or if you're not fully present. And so you are starting to see rules where employers are saying, if you're on a Zoom call, with a client or at a staff meeting, we need you to be present. And so to limit distractions around you and be part of the conversation. Other things that that you're starting to see are policies around what goes behind you if you're on a Zoom call. There's been the popularity of Zoom backgrounds, which I have, or screens or curtains, which Daya has. But it sometimes employers don't want to see your kid walking right behind you, or your spouse walking right behind you, particularly if your spouse or significant other is not in the best of in the best light at that moment, or just walking around the house. And so it's important that as an employee at home or as an employee, you set these guidelines, as to maybe use a standard virtual background to help promote your organization, or if you're in a cramped space and you don't want people seeing what's behind you, that you invest in even a green screen. You can get those in Amazon or any other online marketplace for very cheap, to get a green screen, which will help give you a more enhanced virtual background. Or you do what Daya does and just buy a screen and put it up, and it just blocks out everything behind her. There are many ways you can do this. Um, Now, one thing I would say though is that one thing I would encourage employers to keep in mind is the idea of privacy. You know, I've heard some horror stories where some employers would require their employees to be on Zoom all day, so they can monitor their productivity, or that or that they're required to not use some sort of screen or to have to be on camera at all times. And I would say that it's important to mind the privacy of your employees. And I think employees, it's okay for you to speak up where you believe that your privacy is, um, at issue here. So, uh, so it's important that you kind of toe that line when it comes to privacy. Employees shouldn't have to show their home to you as an employer. That's a privacy concern. And that's why I think having a standard policy around a virtual background or a screen might be helpful for that. I also don't think it's good to have someone on a Zoom call throughout the day. That does not encourage or inspire confidence that you trust your employees, and it can be invasive. What if your employees do something personal? You shouldn't have to see or hear that, or that person or that employee shouldn't have to ask for permission in their own home to do something that's personal to them, particularly taking care of kids or someone who's sick at home. So these are other things to think about. And one fear that I've heard expressed by some workers' rights advocates, or employees for that matter, is the idea of, you have your work life and your personal life, and sometimes you don't want those two things mixing. Particularly if you're not sure how your employer might take it. And an easy example is if you're in a same-sex relationship and you don't want people knowing that because of where you work, or you're not sure how your employer might take that. If your employer does see your spouse in a same-sex relationship, you don't know how that person might take that, and it could lead to compliance issues. So even more reason that you want to be very mindful about the practice you set and the culture you set around Zoom calls.
Great, Edgar. So I would like to address now some Zoom worst practices. So you might not think that people need to be reminded of the basics, but there's been a lot of blurring between the work and home balance now. I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of now a well-known reporter that literally got caught with his pants down on Zoom. So this is very important to keep your life you're separated from your work life. There must be boundaries. We used to have natural boundaries, things we did in the home were things we did in the home, and things we did at work were things we did at work. So for everybody's health and sanity, and for to avoid compliance issues, make sure that you keep a really clean line. Also, if you've been drinking, you probably would not go into the office if you've been drinking. So, why are you getting on Zoom? So, this is a great time to take a personal day. Do what you would do back in real life. You would say, you know what, this was a bad idea, and I cannot go to work like this, and take a personal day. People are taking a lot less personal days. They are working during times when they should not be at work. So just logging in and putting on the non-camera and going about your regular life while you should be engaging 100% in your work life. Worst practice, absolutely worst practice. So do one activity, stop that activity if it's a personal activity, and do a work activity. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google Jeffery Toobin, that's with two O's, to go ahead and find out what I'm talking about. So with that, let's talk about one more thing, talk about another thing that we can't not talk about. So Edgar, I'm going to let you take this one away.
Yeah, so politics in the workplace can be a pretty fraught um, situation. And I believe that 2020 this year has showed us, even in a virtual format, how how far it could be. Particularly, where you hear stories about people who wear Black Lives Matter hats or shirts, are fired or told to take them off, or organizations not being uh, mindful of people's willingness or right to protest. And that being that being an issue for some employers and employer relationships. So my advice to employers is this: when it comes to the discussion of politics in the workplace, you first want to think about what kind of culture do you want to build, right? And also what type of industry you're in. If you work for a think tank, politics in the workplace is unavoidable. You're going to be talking about politics all the time because that's the nature of what we do, right? And so it just may not be something you can realistically, avoid. Whereas if you work at a dental practice, it might be something you'll say, we're here to service our patients, and we can talk about personal things, that's fine, but politics is something we just keep out of the conversation, and it might make more sense in that type of environment. So you got to think about what kind of culture you're trying to set, and what you do as a profession day to day. And the next thing is that I always believe that setting clear policies is always a good thing. A lot of times with politics, there are unwritten rules, but I think with how information is shared these days, and you can you can sometimes know about someone's politics even without talking with them, just by going to social media. It would not be a bad idea to set certain guidelines, and it could be as serious as no discussion on politics whatsoever. You could go that route. I don't know if I necessarily recommend that, but I can see that as something that you think might be the best. But I also think that it's good to highlight what your certain most of your policies should have in terms of respect in the workplace. Most policies should have language about mutual respect, not bullying people, not shouting at one another, basic codes of conduct, and behavior that you expect employees to have. And so you can use that as the launching point into having a conversation with staff about how you engage one another when it comes to difficult conversations around politics or social unrest. I think that's always a good place to start, and reminding people that the policies are clear about what it means to engage with one another as colleagues. And so I think that's will be a great place to start if you don't have that, and and making sure that there's an open door policy when it comes to these things. If someone has an issue or if someone is concerned about something, that you have an open door to hear people out and address concerns, because it's always going to be a concern. Particularly when you have a workplace where people come from many different walks of life and life experiences. It's inevitable that you're going to have these issues come up.
Yeah, that's great, Edgar. And fostering that talking, bringing. I do a lot of work with conflict on teams, and so having that to where you can engage in some healthy conversation around things with a common goal, versus coming in and kind of head to head with politics. So, looking ahead, this year we had. Lots of voting options. There, and every state was different, and like especially in the DMV. So some people live in DC and live in Maryland or live in Virginia, and they are from all over. And so each actual jurisdiction had a different regulation on what type of votes that they would be accepting. So I know for the people who did go and vote in person, I was someone who went in person and had to stand in line for over an hour to vote. And one of the poll workers was like, "Who all's going to be late to work?" And I think my expression, I did have a meeting to go to, and I was like, well, it's too soon to tell. So I was about 4 minutes late to my meeting to get back home and get on my Zoom call, and I had notified everybody that that was probably going to be the case. So you also mentioned, active times to be involved in political work. I think a lot of people are now getting more involved in either community organizations or political organizations, as well as active in voting rights and planning ahead for the next election to really exercise that right to vote. So as an employer, what are the things that do I need to be looking for in the future?
Yeah, I would say for the future, I think really examining the way you communicate with your staff when it comes to these things. I think that the last couple of days and weeks have showed us is that um, the social unrest is real in this country. It's not, um, it's not just something the news is saying. I think that uh, there are a lot of people who just have very different views right now. Um, and and the workplace is a reflection of society, whether we like it or not. And so it's really important for employers to exert leadership in the way how their staff interacts in the workplace, particularly when it comes around these really tough issues. And I would also add that there's this unfortunate thing right now happening where uh, that fact is now politicized, and it's becoming a problem in the way we address certain social issues. And I would just encourage employers uh, that remember, do your part to ensure that your employees have um, feel that they feel safe, that they feel heard, because that will affect their productivity. If they feel unsafe and don't feel heard, then you're not going to get the best out of your employees. And I think now is a time that it's very crucial that we focus on that. I think that people, and we've been saying this on these talks for a while, but unfortunately, um, although a lot of time has passed, a lot of things have remained the same, and I think people still feel very stressed, feel very scared, um, and just wonder what the future holds for them. And it's really important that um, outside of ensuring productivity and minding your compliance, all the things we talk about on these talks, but really think about how do I make sure that the morale of my employees is high. What can I do to ensure that they know that when it comes to their work with my organization, that we're making decisions based on fact, based on their interests in mind, and ensuring that there's at least one thing in their lives that's stable. Because that right now that's really important for a lot of people.
That's great. That's great. Yes, definitely go back to some of our previous episodes where we talked on about having difficult conversations in the workplace, because that could be very useful. All right. Any parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts would be, you don't have to do all this on your own. Day and I are professionals that do this for a living, and even if you don't want to work with us, there are tons of people that you can reach out to, a resource you can tap into online, to help you make these tough decisions. So don't suffer in silence. There are a lot of people who are committed to helping you all make these decisions in a way that um, results in success.
Great, great thought. And we are here answering your questions. We are here for private appointment to join our community and ask us some questions. We have a QR scanner, which will take you to a replay of this video and also the booking links for myself and Edgar. So use us both as a resource, either or both. And also email me questions because this is all in response to what our community of employers and employees are reaching out to us to talk about. So until next time, thank you all.
Take care, everyone.